We all come to pray, going back for warriors, keeping the whispers away. In suits and in skirts, we're the rebels you say, talking about life and dreaming of a different day. On the back row we stay, in the back we don't sway, just let the sermon flow. We're on the back row.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. Joining us all the way from over the pond, it's the news wizard, Verlin. I was going to say top of the morning, but that's a whole different point. Good day to you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, top of the world. Very well. You sounded almost exactly like my driver this morning.
Get out. I couldn't handle it. I've never been to England. But I couldn't handle it, I think, for a couple of reasons.
Why is
One,
that?
I would want every gentleman to sing Step in Time, regardless of who and what they are. And I would fall in love with every woman that I met,
It's
regardless of
true.
age, beauty, character, all of those things. I would just stare at the women and go, just continue to talk, because I think your accent is so beautiful.
They all sound charming. I keep telling people in the US, I've had coworkers that are British,
Yeah.
and they said, I'm worried that my accent is distracting people. I said, don't even worry a second about it. You have an advantage none of us have.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
that accent. Yeah.
And the intelligence that comes along with it too. I would just think that everyone is the smartest,
Exactly.
most charming person ever. I love, though, that I'm able to just start out by offending an entire thing. We've had this
That's exactly right.
conversation before, not you and I, but it's funny that I can come in and do something like that, and that's perfectly fine. But if I were to do a different accent from a different part of the world, it would very quickly be like, oh, that was
That's right.
not
Yeah.
good. That was,
Yeah. If you put on, yeah, I can name any number of
yeah,
accents
please
that would
don't.
get you in trouble, right?
What you're working over
But
from?
I'm sure you can do all of them.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, terribly. I can do any accent terribly. I know what you're really doing over there in England, but why don't you tell people what allegedly you're doing over there?
Well, allegedly, I'm here for work
Okay,
for
okay.
a couple of days.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a very short trip. Just flew in this morning. I have meetings that start tomorrow morning, all the way through a late dinner, and then I jump on a plane Friday morning for our annual Youd Boys baseball weekend.
Okay, which
So
means
uh, so
what?
I'm,
Where are we going?
which means 3 baseball games in 3 cities over a weekend.
Who are you seeing? Who are you seeing as
Yeah,
far
so
as that?
we're going
I'm
to see the
assuming.
Boston. We're going
Yeah.
to see the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, and the Baltimore Orioles.
Oh, that's too bad. So no good
Yeah.
teams. Okay. Now, the truth about what you're doing, I think you and I both know, and I think it's time. I mean, she knows already too, so you might as well
Okay,
be honest.
might as well.
Recently, you moved, and we know that you are not a details guy. And so, what you did is you said, "Babe, you got this. I know we're still unpacking, and I know you want to do it the way that you want to do it, and you don't want to be managed by me. So, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go over the pond for just a hot minute. You take care of this. Make sure it's done by the time I get back, and I sure love you. Goodbye."
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. But
yeah.
we believe in equal time. So actually, my better half has been gone. She had been gone for 10 days and just arrived home yesterday. And so she had entrusted me to get a lot of things done while she was gone, and I completely fell over and accomplished probably less than half of what I was supposed to.
Well, sure.
But
To
I
be
had a fun
fair,
time doing it.
yeah, to be fair though, she had that expectation already.
Yeah.
She just allowed you to pretend like you were going to get more done. She's like, I know what's really going to happen. I've been married to him long
Yeah,
enough to know
that's
not
right.
this, not this. I'm going to have to pick up the slack on this and
That's
other
right.
things. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Baseball and England. I'm trying to think if there's anything kind of exciting here on this end. I We have in our community this thing called a harvest fair. So there's
Oh,
in the community that I live in, there is this organization. They're very like they're like fire for the community or something like that. It's something very aggressive, community oriented.
But it's very Taylorsville
Yeah,
or broader than that.
no, I don't think the name of it's very Taylorsville, but it is very like if if there's like an America first movement or like a Utah first movement, these people are Taylorsville first kind of
Okay.
people. And it's unaffiliated with the church. It is like this group that people said Taylorsville needs to be better. And so there are several members of the church that do it when we're doing this harvest fair in a couple weeks. And it's this huge undertaking. It's a whole day. It's sponsored in part by the church because we have one of these old steak centers that has the steak center and then has
Ah,
the like pavilion next to it and then a huge just thing
big
of grass.
field.
Yeah, huge,
Yeah.
huge. I walk
Oh,
by it and go, we're watering this. And
come
I
on, say
literally,
when you say huge, you have to use the right accent when you say
oh,
that.
I'm sorry, huge.
Huge.
Huge. I didn't know if we were, I didn't know which accent we were going through, but as soon as you did it, I understood exactly. But it's one of these fields that I go, guys, that is thousands of gallons of water that we are keeping alive for anyway. Um,
Yeah.
so we use this field and this harvest fair is massive. It is the whole community. They have pallets that say Harvest Fair. They've used pallets as their kind of like advertising tool. So on each line of wood, it's like Harvest Fair. Here's the date. Here's the time. This is where it's at.
Okay.
And it's massive. And what people do is it's like entertainment from people in our community. So we have some Polynesian folks, they'll come and do that kind of entertainment. We have singing groups, they're all this, right? All of that kind of stuff. There's that.
Oh.
Then there's also everyone brings their sort of spoils from their garden that they're like, there's no
Okay.
way I'm going to eat all of this.
All the zucchini, all the peppers, all the
Yeah.
onions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you just come through and you take as much as you want. People put it out on the table and you go, oh yeah, yep, yoink, yoink, yoink. So that's part of it.
Okay.
And then they do like this winter coat exchange. So if you had a winter
Oh.
coat and now it doesn't fit, you put coats out and then your kids or you or whatever, you can come grab
Mm.
a coat and it's also gloves and all these things, right? So it's a chance you don't have
Ah.
to pay for any of it and then be able to do it. Well, I got put on the sites of the committee because there was an email that went out from our stake trying to get some volunteers to
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
this. And
Yeah.
within the email, it said, and we're looking for women to knit something. I can't remember what it was. And I wrote back and I said, okay, uh, I just want to ask, like, if I'm a man and I knit, can I not participate in this? I was hoping that we could not, be so. I think I even said, unfortunately, this is the kind of guy I am. Can we be a little less 1950s? And like, if there's a specific, we need only women to knit, I understand. But if not, recognize that there are men who knit. I am not one of
Hmm.
them. So I am taking issue with something which I am not. But I mean, let's try and be a little bit
That's
bigger.
never been done before.
Yeah. Yeah. And and the reply I got back was not like, "Oh, we're sorry," or "Oh, that's an interesting point that we didn't recognize," or "Oh, maybe we should be more sensitive," or something like that. The reply I got back was, "Well, did you want to help with the event or not?" And I was like, I mean, Saturdays are difficult for me because of what I do for a living. Blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
then I get a text message this last week that says, "Hey, would you and your wife," now pause real quick. One of the things that the church is pretty good about, and we hear this, I think, in people's conversion stories, is that, they always were asking the non-member spouse to participate
Uh,
within the church. And then it was when they did that. My wife is very, I'll use now the English and British word. She's very keen to what that means. And so
hmm.
as soon as someone will ask her if she wants to do something, she most of the time will be like, I'm not a member. I'm not doing that. That's not a thing that I'm going to do." And I joined her in this one because they said, "Hey, there's a children's play area at the Harvest Fair. Would you be willing to be in charge of that area
Sounds
for a little?"
perfect for Richie and his best friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wrote back is I said, "We don't typically do children things." Perhaps if there's something else we could do that my talents might be lending more toward, I might be interested. But I
Just for the record, if a member of your bishopric happens to be listening to this,
uh-huh.
I personally think you would be the best primary chorister of all time.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
But I have to say, and this is a whole thing. I didn't even think we were going to get into this, but the other night I did a bubble party for kids that were
I
ages,
saw a picture.
yeah,
I saw a picture. Yeah.
12 and under. There was a bubble party, right? You have these
Mhm.
machines, they pump out tons of bubbles, and it's insanity. It's everything every kid would want. Everything every kid would want. They get bubble wands and there were competitions of blowing bubbles in chocolate milk and this foam that gets all over the place and you're screaming and running and it's so much you can't get away from it. I tried to give instructions to kids. So I amplified loud speakers not 10 feet away from these kids. Look here, look here, look here. Everyone look here. Everyone, are you looking here? Stand in a line, stand in a line, stand in a line. And at one point, and I shouldn't maybe have said this, but at one point I said, I did not take enough Adderall to be able to deal with this today, which several parents thought was funny and unfortunately was untrue or was true.
Wow.
But here's the thing, and I don't get it, and I don't know, and this is he would get it if he were a parent of a small child. Kids don't listen, but I knew they could hear me because then I said, "Hey, I've got free bubbles," and it was like heads turn and immediately do what it was. And so I just was like, "Nope, I hate each and every one of you kids right now because I was talking to you and I was trying to make your experience better and I was giving simple directions and I wasn't asking too much. I just literally needed you to look at me for 2 seconds. Forget it." So, yeah, we don't.
There's the reason you need to have that calling. That would be
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, we don't typically do kid things. I laughed after I said that. I was like, "Yeah, I mean that is fair."
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean,
You would be
people.
great at it.
Oh, and you're right in that particular
So
thing.
the Harvest Days doesn't have anything to do with rodeos. I thought rodeos were the summer fall thing in Utah. I mean,
Well,
Lehigh
yes,
has
but
their
not here.
rodeo and
Yep,
Nephi and
yep, but not here.
Ogden and
Nope,
Spanish
nope,
Fork.
nope. This is all
Wow.
about harvesting.
Okay.
But it is. I will say, I went a couple years ago. I was like, "What is this harvest?" It's
Hmm.
cool. It's cool. The fact that the
Yeah,
community could activate for something like this,
that's very
and
cool.
that it's not the LDS Church presents Harvest Fair. It is
Even
a
better.
genuine
It's a
committee of,
neighborhood.
yep,
Yeah.
of a lot of people just saying,
Yeah.
we like where we live. We want to get to know people. We recognize that there are some needs and we don't want anyone to feel any sort of way about it. So I think it's
That's
pretty
awesome.
incredible.
That's
But
very
I will
cool.
not be
Very
manning the
cool.
kid situation. I feel like they've got my number though, because now they sent me a text message yesterday that said, "Hey, we think you have some unique set of skills and abilities." And I was like, "Okay, all right.
Here it
I like where
comes. Here
this
it
is.
comes.
We need an MC for the stage for a part of the day." And I said, "Yes, let me figure out what my schedule is for that day." And they could have left it at that, right? They could have just said, "Now he probably feels like we know him a little bit." But then the next text message was like, "And we've got a great red sequin coat that you can wear while you're MCing." And I was like, "Okay,
Oh.
well, we got to get this. Now we got I got to give them an hour at least. They have appealed to not only my vanity but my need and love of a costume. So,
Well, and they didn't go the next step, which was, and we were thinking we could use a DJ for part of the afternoon, and
well,
wouldn't you like
no,
to contribute your time?
yeah, no. So here is where they know better. My
Haha.
my stake president, he runs a business. It's like a warehousing business. He's the president or CEO, or he's a something, and the other guy's a something. Anyway, and they recently hired me for their company party in the summertime,
Hmm.
and and they made no sort of approach or appeal to pay me less because of the connection, which I appreciated so much so that when I saw him at the event and we are talking and chatting, I said, "I appreciate that you made no sort of appeal to try and get this cheaper because I am one of your congregants," because he's the stake president. And
Yeah.
and I think that he, as well as others, are very much like, if people do the thing professionally, we pay them accordingly or we don't use them. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Not every
Well,
ward is like
there's
that.
that, or when someone asks you for it, you can say, "Oh, I'll give you the church discount.
Yeah.
It's just add 10%."
Yeah. Or you pay the 10% and I'll take the 90. There. That's a deal. That's a deal.
There you
And
go.
if you don't pay the 10%, I don't need to know. But
Yours, yeah.
in my mind, it's already taken care of. Verlin, let's take a quick break. When we come back in the second half, he has prepared and ordered out some articles of news that we're going to go over. Some big stories, including we mentioned in our last episode a whole thing, if you haven't listened to it, about the LDS transgender policies that have come out August 2024 with the handbook update. I want to get some of your opinion on that, but there's also so many other things that changed within that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, let's see. I know that we're going to talk. You keep trying to shove in a little bit more about the BYU Med School, so we'll talk about that. The church
Okay.
reacts to entertainment media getting it wrong, and so we'll talk about that as well. That's all coming up in the second half of Articles of News. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit LennonDesign.com.
Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter.
You can't lose articles of news.
And away we go. Now, I want to quickly bring up that I make a lot of promises that never actually come into fruition. You can just ask my wife.
As do all of us. Yep.
But I did an interview, and we published it the other day. Old
You
college
did.
friend of mine, Dr. Eric Kirby Esquire, and we talked all about Gen Z. Very, very good. If you have not yet listened to that, his
was
book is
awesome.
fantastic as well, but you don't understand that generation. You were mentioning that you learned something. I love that people learn something. Tell me, please.
Yeah, I hadn't pieced it together that all of the different kind of societal events that have happened over the last 10, 15 years, everything from 9/11 to social media to COVID, if you pack those all together, it turns out that the people that are in Gen Z haven't had a lot of the formative experiences we had as we were growing up. They weren't able to work in some cases. They were told, in fact, they could make other people sick in some cases. They lived through some tumultuous financial times in their families. And you put all of those things together, and all of a sudden you realize why that generation may not have the same set of skills that preceding generations have, and why we need to be a little bit more patient and maybe be in more of a mindset of training and mentoring for the first little while until they build those skill sets.
Yeah,
it was insightful.
That was the big thing I took away was they just don't know. And if you can go from it instead of like they should know instead to, hey, here is what my expectation is and the steps that I would like you to take. And for some, and I think I hopefully within the interview talk about that. Like to me, some part of that to me is like, no, just know it. I don't have time. Just know this thing. But if we can take the moment or two to be able to walk people through that. Anyway, people should check that out. Make sure that you subscribe to the Cultural Hall because interviews aplenty coming, including going to be visiting with Garrett Batty. He's got a new film that's coming out. I'm going to be talking with not only like the head of the project, but a couple of the voice actors from the new Book of Mormon project. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
Well, I'm just going to tease it. So when you listen, there's a way for you to listen to the Book of Mormon now within one of your apps that
Hmm. Hmm.
it's like, so you have your very like Bruce Lindsay authoritative, and it came to pass that
Right.
Soraya said, and then you have a woman's voice that's like, well, blah, 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 blah. And they've made it, they have, if you've listened to like some of these, not interactive, that's not the right word for it, but these audio books where they have added not only character or voice actors, but also like the sounds of the door, almost like these
Ah,
old audio
coming back
dramas.
to old radio
Yes,
shows.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 They have produced the Book of Mormon in that way. And so we're going to talk about why they did
Ah.
it, talk with some of the actors about how they got into character and some of that stuff. So that's a huge interview that's coming up as well. So we're
Well, you
back,
know what, you
baby.
may, if you can ask them, and maybe they don't want to comment on it. Lately, I've been listening to all of the Saints volumes again,
Mm-hmm.
and I've realized that I love the stories and the content, but the voice is killing me.
Hmm.
And maybe it's because it's one person reading the whole thing, but as he reads, statements from George Q. Cannon, he puts on a slight British accent. And when he reads a statement from a woman, he uses a little bit higher register in his voice. And
Really?
yeah, and maybe because I don't listen to it at regular speed, I listen to it at 1.5 speed. Maybe that's what kind of is tricking my brain and making me not enjoy the voice.
I'm just
Um,
looking at who this is. His name is Ben Cummins.
yes,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. And did you know there's
yeah.
a female voice too that you can listen to Saints in?
Oh, I didn't know that. I may
Yeah.
swap.
Yeah,
That's
I
a good
don't know.
idea.
But my guess somewhere in the app, according to Audible, the female narrator for Saints is
Okay.
Hilary Straga.
Well,
Uh,
I'm just listening to it out of the gospel library. So I wonder if I can pick it there or have to go to a different service to pick a different voice.
but you got to be careful about how you talk about this because the male narrator for Saints Volume 2 and 3 is Kirby Aborn, beloved guest of the Cultural Hall. So
Well,
watch
Kirby, nice job.
so watch
Except it annoys me once in a while.
it. You can't win them all. The thing that
No,
drives me
no, and
crazy.
I'm not meaning to be critical. I just, since you're talking to someone, and I actually love voice programs. I love the old radio shows. When I first went to BYU, my original declared major was radio and television communications.
Hmm.
Um, and so I love people who have those talents.
The thing
But
that
yeah,
drives me crazy is when your narrators, I think it's Krakauer's book, there's some word that's very obviously not the way that the reader, it's like Moroni or something like that. It's one of those.
yeah,
And it's just like, guys, you take a minute.
get it right.
Neffy, it's like, okay, I get it. We got the rest of them. There are some other hard words. I even give a pass for Zion because, okay, I can see a case for it.
Yeah, but that comes from people who say Oregon and
Hmm.
Nevada. That's the same people who say Zion.
Yeah, I'm a Nevada man myself. Let's get into the news.
Yeah.
We did the huge episode, like we talked about the LDS transgender policies. Other parts of the guidebook or the church handbook, what sort of took your mind?
Yeah,
What caught
there's
your
a bunch
attention?
of really what seem to be small changes, but when you dig into them, you realize how important and how they're part of a pretty complex set of guidelines. One of them is something that, something as simple as how sealing ordinances are handled. And there was a couple of changes to how children are sealed to parents, and it had to do with children. I mean, you think of all the different permutations: children that are adopted, children from IVF, children from surrogate parent, uh, children from a woman who has a child after she's divorced her husband,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
all of these different interesting policies around who and how and who has to approve those kind of sealings. The one that I found really interesting was kind of flipped on who is allowed to seal children to parents. And so the recommendation is that you use a sealer at your local temple to do that. Number two, if you have a specific sealer you want to use, particularly if they're a family member, if they are operating in that temple, then you just ask for that sealer. But if you have a family member and you want them to seal children to parents in a different temple, they have to get special permission from the first presidency to be able to do that.
Hmm.
And based on the instructions, it sounds like they will only get that approval if they are lineal relatives. In other words, if they're a parent, a grandparent, great grandparent, to be able to do that. So I thought, something that seems pretty small was pretty interesting. And I found myself digging into kind of the whole, what's right, I don't want to say rat hole because it was a positive thing about all the different permutations and sealings and who can be sealed and not. And some interesting cases now in terms of women being able to be sealed versus men being able to be sealed. There's always been some differences there. But as I dug into it and realized there are some cases where women are able to be sealed to previous spouses as well as a current spouse. It's a really interesting example to be able to do that. So I thought sealings was one. Another one that was really interesting was a specific recommendation that I don't think was not allowed previously, but a bishop can talk to the young women's organization and help the young women's assign ministering assignments for young women to welcome people to church, to be the greeters in essence, right? And in the past, we've always seen either couples, senior couples, or maybe even teachers and priests have those kind of assignments. But it's great that they're formally recognizing that young women should have those kind of assignments as well.
A quick pause there. That's how my ward does it, and it's wonderful.
It's fantastic. It's great. That's great. They talk a little bit more about how elders quorum and relief societies are supposed to spend some counseling time together. We talk about ward councils, but now we've been instructed that in elders quorum, we should spend 10 minutes each Sunday counseling together about some issue or some challenge or some kind of opportunity. And the new ward that we moved into, our elders quorum president has done a great job of that. Every elders quorum meeting of saying, hey, we've been thinking about this topic, but we wanted to get everyone's feedback. And we have a little bit of an elders quorum council about the topic and what are ideas and what can we do. The most recent topic was how can we all support the prospective elders that are in our quorum, and particularly those that are new converts. What can we do to support them? And we had prospective elders commenting on what kind of support they needed. And we had, experienced members talking, and we had brand new ordained elders that were 18 years old talking about what they thought they could do.
How awesome.
To contribute as well, which was great.
Now, you haven't
they
even
clarified
mentioned it.
Easter and Christmas.
You haven't even mentioned it. It seems like you're going through, but I feel like it's far more, not necessarily groundbreaking, but impactful about the garments. We'll get back to Easter and Christmas because I think that is important.
Yeah.
Let's just quick aside it real quick. Yes, Easter church will always be an hour, and church the week of Christmas will always be an hour. It's official. We've arrived. Okay. Now, the parts about the garments.
That's right. Oh, but they added something else that no one has said anything about. They said in countries where there are other significant cultural holidays that fall on Sundays, that based on local traditions, the church can decide to have 1 hour meetings then as well.
I like that.
So,
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
A good wrinkle.
Okay, now the garments. This is what I thought was interesting. So there are 3 kind of new or updated sections. One, how you care for your garments, like the literal physical care for your garments.
Yeah.
2, the variety of styles and fabrics. The update explains that a variety of garment fabrics and styles are available to accommodate individual preferences and needs. Special order options are also provided to meet members' specific requirements, which I think is significant and needed. As a church leans into, hey, we should be wearing these more often. I think that the other side of that has to be, and we can be more accommodating with a special order. You're super tall. You have a long torso. You've got, in my case, ginormous thighs. So you have to buy waists of things way too big, but your legs barely fit into it. That's from pants shopping the other day that made me feel terrible about myself. But then a category, or the third part that we'll likely get more into as we have some other conversations coming up here in the future, not here in this articles of news, but medical considerations. What did you think about this?
I thought that was fantastic, recognizing that some people have allergies to certain materials and fabrics. And so they need to be, there needs to be accommodations. If there are other medical considerations, there need to be accommodations. And I thought it was really impactful in the handbook itself. It made a comment that if, because of a medical need, someone is required to not wear garments for an extended period of time, they should not feel guilty in any way whatsoever. In fact, they should feel like they are living the spirit of the law, and they will receive all of the blessings that they would receive for wearing the garments full time.
I think that that's significant for a couple of reasons. One, that I know, actually personally know, that there are people that have found comfort in the words of like, hey, don't feel guilty about this.
Yeah.
You are doing the best you can. But the other part of that conversation that I would be curious to have with you is, I think that, like, for me, if there were a medical condition and I couldn't wear them, like, it would be the furthest thing from my mind that I would feel guilty about it.
I agree. I agree. It's not part of my psyche to feel that way, but I know a number of members who do, whether that comes from kind of a side of religiosity, perhaps that they have a challenge with, or some people have grown up in environments where things have been dogmatically focused on so much that they feel guilty about certain things.
Yeah.
And so I think that's great. The other comment that's in there, that's been there for a while now, but certainly wasn't part of my parents' generation, was if you're wearing other undergarments, for instance, if a woman's wearing a bra or whatever, there is no requirement of as to what order they need to be worn in, right? And so you can, as long as you're wearing the garments, it doesn't matter whether the bra is in, under the garments, on top of the garments, whatever is most comfortable for you.
You can
And I
wear the
think that's
bra
great.
over the garment on the first Sunday of the month, and then the rest of the, doesn't that seem it? I used to, I don't know what changed or when it changed, but I used to very much be like, it is garment first, and then if you have to wear briefs for support,
Oh,
it is briefs over, and it's all these things. And I don't know.
no, I don't think that changed until 10, 15 years ago. I mean,
Yeah,
I think prior to that, it was very much that way culturally, I would say.
but I don't know when I changed, where I just clicked in my brain where I'm like, I think just God cares that it matters to you at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes I worry that that's far too lax, or that I'm just like, listen, I need to be a little bit more dogmatic or prescribe to some of these things. But I just think, if someone were to come to me and say, I am terribly allergic to this particular fabric and this is all I can get in, like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine that I could turn to that person at this point in my life and be like, sorry, pal, God wants you to be so allergically uncomfortable. So pick.
Yeah.
Either be
No.
uncomfortable the rest of your life or choose Satan, right? And that's how I feel like at for a long time in my life that I sort of acted, but I don't know what the difference is. I don't know when that change occurred.
I think the church is making progress, and we're making progress culturally. This doesn't solve all the issues. I was at a distribution center in Atlanta, next to the Atlanta Temple, a couple of weekends ago, and we bought some garments. The challenge there was they didn't have all of the fabrics in stock. And so if you wanted this fabric in this size, you had to go online and order it.
Yep.
Because they just didn't have them. So maybe they can do a better job of having fabrics in stock. Maybe I'm sure they have someone responsible for the designs. I've worked with retailers for most of my career, so I know a little bit about the clothing supply chain. And with the developments in the clothing supply chain, the church should have a better opportunity of having maybe better designs or more comfortable designs that still meet the requirements for what the garment should be.
One last thing that I thought was significant is that in the updates for the handbook, it said, and you can anticipate that this handbook will continue to be updated at least 2 times a year.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that
No,
was
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And there will be those people on social media, you've seen them, they're like, oh, there goes the doctrine changing again. But I love this change because what it's saying is this isn't core doctrine, right? We can change these things because it can be changed, because the Lord is accommodating and the Lord addresses the needs of his children when they need it.
Well, see, and I think we should just change them because we can. I don't think we
Yeah,
need a
of
reason.
course.
Let's just change it. Hey, guys, let's change this thing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to make sure that we get to this story. There was a missionary that passed away. Let's talk about that real quick.
There was. Yeah, I think it's worth talking about. So Elder, let's see, his name was Elder Kelvin Ilunga. He was 25 years old and he passed away just a few days ago on August 18th due to a vehicle accident. He was in North Ghana, and evidently his companion was injured with minor injuries, but Elder Ilunga passed away. And it's always sad to hear that. I can't even think about if my son was on a mission and passed away, the challenge that would be. But as long as you have tens of thousands of missionaries out there, you're going to have those kinds of things happen. So
and I just it's just sad. I guess
it
that's
is.
how I feel, right? I just think about, I felt so very invincible when I served. I did some dumb. When you
Oh,
serve, say, stateside or maybe anywhere, I just did some
Port-au-Prince,
dumb
Haiti, I
things.
did some really stupid things. Oh yeah.
And the fact that I was able to live through it. Sometimes when I read about these missionaries, I'm like, what? Yeah, I should have died when I jumped onto a frozen lake. I should have gone through the ice and died. But yet I'm jumping onto very fragile ice of Lake Erie in the wintertime. Should be dead.
Yeah.
Should be tragic. He's a moron, missionary jumping onto the fragile ice of Lake Erie accident. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Only the Lord knows why some elders are taken and some sisters are taken, like the sister in Haiti that passed away a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, and why others aren't. In my mission, I don't know who made the decision, but zone leaders and the assistants to the president drove Toyota Land Cruisers,
Jeez.
four-wheel drive Toyota Land Cruisers. Tell me we did not abuse those way beyond what the church was thinking we should.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. And then I want to get into a couple of these just quickies as well. The mission call parties. Man,
Oh my gosh.
if we are going to Mormons are going to morm so hard. Allow us the opportunity to take something and just go overboard. And maybe that's society, but
I
geez.
think it's just cycles. It's just cycles. So in the 80s, I remember farewells and homecomings were huge parties and huge to-dos. And farewell programs, the family took over the sacrament meeting.
Mhm.
Literally, if it wasn't the prayers and if it wasn't the sacrament,
Yeah.
everything but the sacrament, the family took care of the songs and special musical numbers and speaking. And it turned out to kind of this memorial service for the elder or sister that was leaving.
Yeah.
And I remember going to one of a friend of my wife's, and it was like a Broadway production, the way that they put on this sacrament meeting. And then there were instructions and a request that came out saying that we should minimize those things. Let's focus on the call. Let's focus on the missionary. And in fact, the missionary was usually given a gospel topic to talk about, and not the typical thankimony
Mhm.
talk that would be given. So they had a real push to kind of minimize those things. Same thing with children of record baptisms.
Mhm.
They put a large effort on, let's not have a big party at the baptism. Let's focus on the baptism itself.
Well,
But
and
it
there
sounds
used to
like
be
these are
these just
returning.
smorgasbord of food, right? And that was part of the issue
Yes.
as well, because you would go
Yeah.
and you would have the sacrament meeting, and then the second, and then at that time, third hour meetings. No one would be there because the entire ward, you would drive down by the person's house, and there's cars for days, days
That's
and
right.
days, more food than anybody could ever eat. And it was a great time to be able to get together.
Oh
So I
yeah.
know as part of that, they said, listen, if you're going to do something like this, do it after the church hour meetings or on another day to be able to celebrate that. And I think for the most part, at least here in Utah, I saw people sort of adhere to that, right? They did.
Yeah,
The
sure.
missionaries got the
Yeah.
particular topic that they would speak about. There would be other speakers that were not chosen by the family. Maybe in some instances there's a special musical number, but for the most
Yeah.
part, the missionary speaking and saying, "Hey, I'm headed out," was as much as it was done. But now we have found a market to go, oh, but they haven't said anything about the announcement of where
Opening your
you're going
mission
on a
call,
mission.
right?
Yeah, opening it up.
Yeah. And it's no longer an envelope that you're opening up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an email. So yeah, it sounds like there's these huge parties, and the one they cite, I guess, is from one of the women that was in the Real Housewives of Salt Lake,
Mm-hmm.
whose son opened his mission call, and they said they had over 100 people come and attend this mission call party. And she flew in cookies from her favorite Italian cookie place in New York City and had it catered and all of those kind of things, which on one side, I think, okay, that's going overboard. On the other side, the Youd family kids were all on their cross-country team at our high school. And it just so happened our high school had the largest cross-country team in the country, 125 to 150 runners on the team. And we would host a pasta party at our house at least twice a year for the entire team. And so we would have 120 to 150 kids at our house eating pasta the night before a big meet. And so it's possible to do without making it such a big deal.
Sure. And people will always make it a big deal because certainly when you say the Real Housewives of Salt Lake, these are people with over the top, personalities. That's why they're on TV. It's not just like, here's an average person doing average things. That's not interesting to us as viewers. But that individual aside, I have seen these massive bubble arches and, the videographers who show up to be able to do it. And I do think that there's a point, like we can't take away all of the things from within the church, some of the things that make it unique. But I do think that there is certainly some perspective and certainly some areas, specifically Utah, maybe Intermountain West, where it is, they had the F-16 jets fly over and do a smoke thing for that person's mission call. So what are we going to do? Well, we've got the high school marching band that's going to come down the road and all that. I opened my mission call in my institute class.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, and then called and told my parents.
Okay. Mine, we were away on a family vacation when mine came in the mail. And so we came home from vacation. It was, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we had driven 800 miles that day. And there's the envelope. And I just casually opened it up and read it and said, hey, guys, I'm going to Haiti on my mission. There was no pomp and circumstance, no celebration around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But
well,
I agree. I agree with celebrating that people are going and coming home. It's just doing it in the right spirit.
Well, and I like a good party, so I'm not poo-pooing a party. I'm not
poo-pooing
a party.
It would. I was wondering if you've been asked to DJ any of these mission assignment openings yet, but maybe that's a new twist on the commercial.
I will do that. I'm going to make that part of a new commercial. Let me make a quick note to myself. I need to record a new commercial anyway.
And somebody has to hire you to do a post-baptism dance party.
Yeah, 100%. I will do that all day. Funerals.
Heck yeah.
My plan, my death plan that my wife wishes I would stop talking about. There will be a DJ at my death.
I've told my kids a live band is required at mine. Now maybe I'll modify it to DJ if you're willing to come out and do it.
Done.
But I told them I want a live band, and they've got to play music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so everyone can enjoy themselves.
Mine is mariachi that is gonna when they take the casket out of the chapel.
Oh, that's awesome.
Into the the hearse, and then from the hearse.
As long as the pallbearers are doing it to time, right? They've got to be choreographed. Okay.
Yeah, there will be rehearsals, and then this is not a joke. And it's funny that I'm perfectly willing to talk about this. So many people are not. In fact, all of those people in my family hate that I talk about it. But like, I want to represent what they want properly when they die. And the other thing is, like, so in my will, it talks about at my death that each of my siblings will get a certain amount of money depending on the amount of kids that they have, and they get to go on vacation. And part of what they have to do on that vacation, this is stipulated within the money that's issued to them, they have to talk about how wonderful I was when I was alive.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Well, my father did a very smart thing several years ago. I can't remember. It was one of his birthdays. Maybe it was when he turned 80. He had a family meeting. Actually, we had a family weekend. The whole family stayed in a hotel in Salt Lake, and we did all kinds of family activities for the weekend. But one night we had a family meeting, and he walked through his funeral program and a little bit more. And I thought it was going to be really awkward. It turned out to be one of the most fun, hilarious, family things that we ever did. We were on the floor laughing so hard at times,
Hmm.
and at other times we were crying.
Sure.
But it was really a fantastic time to really understand what he was looking for and what meant something to him, and then we could make fun of each other and who was going to play what part in this funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
I think
so I'd
people should.
recommend it. I don't. They should have that conversation.
And then I'm gonna usurp the power and take this story real quick, just because I think it's a quick one off. The Utah State University Libraries has announced that the 2024 Arrington Mormon History Lecture is going to be Jana Reese, previous guest of the Culture Hall. You can find a link to her episode in the show notes. Her lecture is called Latter-day Saint Women and the Quiet Erosion of Certainty. And that's going to take place October 10th at 7 p.m. at the Russell Wanless Performance Hall up in Logan, and I'm 99% sure that that's going to be streamed. So if you like Jana Reese, she did The Next Mormons, How Millennials Are Changing the LDS Church, and then the comedic memoir Flunking Sainthood. You can check that out. She also writes quite a bit, and we share articles from Jana Reese all the time. So I want to make sure that we give the attention to that to people who might be interested in that. Take us news where you would like to take us next.
Let's go to the church in Disney World, or at least some kind of connection. It turns out the city of Orlando is gobbling up unincorporated property around their city, which they're grabbing pieces of 2 or 3 different counties now. My city in North Carolina or my previous city in North Carolina is doing a similar thing at a smaller scale. But it looks like Orlando is going to be incorporating up to 60,000 acres of church ranch land. And in fact, the ranch land has already been zoned, and some of it has already been planned for a development that includes single family homes and multifamily residences and businesses and the like. So it could be a very interesting kind of combination of Orlando and church property. And it got me thinking, wouldn't it be cool if the church do some kind of a deal and have a special FSY set of programs at Walt Disney World? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes, let's do it. Because members of the church love Disney for, the family friendly, the best place on earth part about it. The thing that I know we've mentioned this multiple times with different episodes, but within the article, it talks about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is the largest private landowner in Florida, owning like a 1/12 of the state.
Yeah, it's huge farmland property, huge. And I thought the other interesting thing here is there's a little bit of a political battle between factions who want this to happen, other factions who don't want this to happen, and they're trying to pass a series of laws that are going to prevent this from happening so easily. And it's had the reverse effect in that now the parties are trying to speed up this happening so that they can get it done before any laws pass. So it's kind of a comedy of actions and reactions along the way.
Well, and that brings up a point. Like, if you ever want to make sure that something that you don't like, people double down on, make a big deal out of it. And that's
right.
hard. But you look at like why Utah with gay marriage, it was because the church put, such an affront to it and aggressively went to make sure that it was not happening, that it in fact sped up the process of it happening.
Yeah, the reaction to Proposition 8 in California was that Utah passed a law that was friendlier than any other state, I believe, at the time.
And it's just the other thing I can't help but wonder is it more valuable if that land is annexed into Orlando, that the church is like, yes, annex us. That doubles property values. Let's go. This is an investment.
That's right.
Come on, put us in the county. Let's go. Take all the land. Let's annex all of it. And they're just seeing the money go up.
That's right. Nothing wrong with that.
And, proximity to Disney World. Let's get there.
That'll be nice. That'll be nice. Now, you teased something at the beginning of the show about kind of the church reacting to some of the portrayals of the church in the media, right?
Yeah, let's
and
go
I'm
here.
sure anyone who's been on social media has seen people are posting and reposting this statement from the church talking about how media doesn't often portrays things the wrong way, doesn't always portray things the way that they really are. They sensationalize things. They may actually create fiction out of things as well. And when I first saw this over social media the last several weeks, I was just thinking about the new reality television series and kind of the reaction to that. But then there was an article about this being applied to the movie The Heretic that we've talked about here in the Cultural Hall, and that the church, that at least the producers and directors of The Heretic are believing that this was aimed at them as well.
Oh.
And I could see that happening to some extent. But I then read in these articles, being in the UK, I looked up a couple of UK articles, and one of them talked about how the two women that star as the sister missionaries in the movie The Heretic are actually returned sister missionaries.
Yeah.
That they are actual returned sister missionaries.
Yeah. I mean, it is a thing. It's worth sharing the statement because it's fairly short. When entertainment media distorts faith, this is the statement from the church. It's short. I'll read it. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like other prominent global faith communities, often finds itself the focus of the attention of the entertainment industry. Some portrayals are fair and accurate, but others resort to stereotypes or gross misrepresentations that are in poor taste and have real-life consequences for people of faith. While this is not new, a number of recent productions depict lifestyles and practices blatantly inconsistent with the teachings of the church. Others irresponsibly mischaracterize the safety and conduct of our volunteer missionaries. We understand the fascination some in the media have with the church, but regret that portrayals often rely on sensationalism and inaccuracies that do not fairly and fully reflect the lives of our church members or the sacred beliefs that they hold dear. Millions of church members around the world are deeply dedicated to family, fidelity, service, and the gospel of Jesus Christ. We invite all to consult reliable sources of information and listen to the voices and authentic experiences of individuals and families who find great joy and satisfaction in living these principles. The true story of our faith is best seen in the countless lives of those who strive daily to follow our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I guess as I read this, I don't know what your thought was. Do you think this is a reaction, an overreaction? We talked just a few minutes ago about when you make a big deal about things, sometimes it becomes a bigger deal than it normally would have. And I think we'll see how this pans out.
I think the makers of The Heretic and the makers of The Secret Lives of Mormons' Wives are going, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. We could not have written a better message ourselves. Thank you.
Yep.
And the church is right. They had to put something out because when you see things like The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and it's soft swinging and we can change partners and all of that, it is interesting to sort of nod to The Heretic within it, the safety and, those things of our or of our missionaries, I think is how they phrase it. But yeah, far more reactionary, I think, to The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. But I think that if you stop and take a second, member of the church or otherwise, you go, yeah, okay, maybe these are some members of, the church by the fact that they were baptized or they had, donned the whatever. They've gone to church before. But these are not what, even in just observance of the ads, these are not what we do when we think of what Mormon people are. We go, oh yeah, clearly. Yep. There it is. That's the whole faith wrapped up in that TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like this is kind of the second wave of this. I remember, was it late in the early 2000s or mid 2000s when the HBO series Big Love came out?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the church put out a similar statement back then, very similar. In fact, I'll bet the first paragraph is almost word for word the same.
Well, and additionally interesting that some of the makers with Big Love, I think I saw this a couple of weeks ago. If I can find it, I'll include it in the links in the show notes, that one of the producers or whatever actually apologized for sort of sensationalizing some parts of Big Love and said that they felt bad for how they shared at least some part of that. I'll have to find that, see if I can share that within our show notes so that people can have that. Our time is waning. What other thing do you feel like we need to get to? We can do a couple quick one-offs.
Yeah. I think there's a quick one. The church did not take any money to support their universities or colleges during COVID, and many other private college and universities took money, COVID grant money. And it turns out those that took money are having a difficult time now because they're having to wean themselves off of that extra money and they don't have that to support their institutions. The church did not take any of that money, and Forbes magazine has rated the church's institutions and schools as extremely financially solid and is very strong as it comes to financials. Now, that's not a surprise. They also quote that the church pours about $1 billion a year total into these institutions, which of course makes it a great deal for those of us that are members of the church and go to BYU, or our children go to BYU or to Ensign College or BYU Hawaii.
Or BYU Idaho.
I thought that was interesting. Sure. Now, that one's the bigger one now, right? I mean, I know more kids that go to Idaho than I do any of the others.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing that the church decided to do, and they should have, right? They shouldn't be taking federal money because they say, hey, this is the rules of our place.
Yeah.
Of course, they in essence, they really couldn't have taken the federal money, because then the federal government can say, all right, you took our money, and now you're going to do this, and now you're going to do.
Now you got to be subject to our standards of conduct, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Elder and Sister Rendlin went to a festival. This is the only reason I wanted to bring this up. It's a young adult festival in Gothenburg, Sweden, and it's called Festinord, and I just thought that was great. I just think that that's a great name of a thing. I wish that we all had conferences named Festinord or some variation of that.
It's a 5-day event. In my mind, all of a sudden I was thinking of the church version of Burning Man for young single adults.
That's what you should do. That's what you should do. When you finally retire, you come up, you'd have to come up with a great name for it. Let me think about this. Who in the Book of Mormon, he gets his head chopped off and then his arms go up in the air, and doesn't he burn, or is that just he gets his head chopped off and his shiz, right? Gets his head chopped off.
That's right.
In the air, but he doesn't get burned. Never mind.
He doesn't get burned now.
Yeah. No, okay.
No.
A shiz festival may not be too bad. That's not
that. And I learned in that article that Elder Renlund spent a couple of years in his youth living in Sweden.
Huh.
So I wonder if he used any Swedish in speaking. It didn't say anything in the article, but I wondered if he did. I hope so.
These kind of quick 2 stories, and then maybe we wrap this thing up. I want to make sure that I got to the big ones that you said. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to some of these other ones another time. More news coming in the future. Deaf and hard of hearing saints able to go on a church history tour, which I think was incredible. There was a symposium in Rochester as part of the Rochester, New York stake, where these individuals, there was 55.
They came from Washington, D.C. They came from New York. They came from, I can't remember the other city, but yeah, 55
Atlanta, Georgia,
people that were deaf or
Utah.
partially deaf, and all their families too. So I imagine there were several hundred people there.
Yep, 55 deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing members were able to enjoy the church historic sites because of some means that were made available for them to be able to go and do so. I think that's great. I think that's a thing that we probably had not even considered in the past, and that we're finally getting better at considering those individuals. And then this, I don't want to call out the church PR department, but I feel like there was a miss on this one. The 2024 Summer Olympic Games, the
surfing competition, right?
They're done and gone, but the surfing competition needed.
Well, the surfing competition was held 8,000 miles from France.
Yeah, because France, not a great surfing destination.
So they claimed Tahiti as part of France, a protectorate, and had the surfing competition there. But yeah, go on. How did the church support the surfing competition?
They bought him an ambulance.
Yeah, they bought him the ambulance so that when a surfer got injured, they could take him in the ambulance. It didn't say whether it was ever used. And I watched a lot of surfing competition in the Olympics. I grew up on the coast of California. I love watching surfing. I'm terrible at surfing, but I didn't see anyone get injured. I saw some great wipeouts, but I didn't see anyone injured.
Well, you remember that picture that went viral where the guy was thrown from his board and he was, number one.
Yeah, he's standing up straight and his board is up straight right next to him. It's a beautiful picture.
What he's talking about, everyone thought he was saying number one, like I'm number one, or like that was such a great ride. I think he was pointing heavenward, and I don't think that we have done that. But, and here's the thing that I take issue with: the church should have wrapped that ambulance.
Oh, you're right.
There should have been some pictures of the Salt Lake Temple or missionaries.
Moroni and
Yeah,
missionaries.
Should have been a propaganda mobile.
They could have had funeral potatoes on the front hood. Absolutely.
Missionaries instead of EMTs. I'm saying we just need to, we got to think about these opportunities.
That's true. A little marketing, product placement.
Yeah, because now we have to wait 4 years, and in LA, there's the LA Temple, which
2 years to the 2 years to the Winter Games, right?
Yeah, but 4 until the next Summer Games.
Yeah.
So
True.
I don't know. Think about it, church. Be next time you go all willy-nilly to
Hey, you're buying ambulances. Let's put some marketing on that thing as well.
Uh,
maybe even Moroni 10, 3 through 5 or something like that
I
on
like
the
that.
side, right?
I like that. Yeah. See, or like scan this code to find what this whole vehicle is about, right? Even if we would have just done something like that. Some mystery.
Want a free book that will change your life? Take a picture of this QR code.
Yeah, the mystery mobile, like from Scooby-Doo, we could have painted it like that, but had very Mormon-looking characters. I don't know. There were more options that were available. I'm sure that they could have literally done none of them because I'm sure that there was stipulations on how it needed to look. But people can find that article and all the other things that we referenced in the show notes. I want to tease a couple future episodes. There is a group in the state of Utah, Intermountain West, who are starting to use mushrooms as part of their worship service. And
really?
I am going to find out about it. I have started down the rabbit hole of finding someone who is faithful, temple worthy, and enjoying the psycho whatever effects of mushrooms. So that's going to be an episode.
Well, I know that's a Native American thing. So is it an angle of, we're practicing the Nephite and Lamanite kind of practices? I don't know.
I literally have no idea about it.
Wow.
And then another person who recently wrote us, and please do this, contact at theculturalhall.com. They had an experience with long COVID, a new treatment, and how it all ties to the word of wisdom. So that is going to be an episode. We're back, baby. We're doing the episodes that you go, what in the what? Thank you, Richie, for doing those. So share with your friends. Tell people about the Cultural Hall. Let them know that this amazing thing exists and that they need to share it with other people. And more episodes to come. Verlin, the news wizard, thank you so much for joining us for a bit of afternoon.
My pleasure. Anytime, my friend.
It's so great to have you. Maybe next time we can clean a chimney or shine a shoe.
Or do stepping time. In time. Yep.
Yeah, there's no G, I don't think. Is there stepping time or is it stepping time?
Stepping time. You're right.
Stepping time. Right. Maybe it's stepping time. I know what I'm doing this afternoon. I'm watching that, I guess. Hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
And if you weren't well enough to listen this week, you'll be well enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. I know there's been a little bit of technical issues with Verlin. He's in England, guys. Give him a break. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the
Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.